Welcome, folks. Today is November 19th, 2015. This is Nick Bernardo. We have Leah Wilson-Conger on the line as well, and several other folks. And thanks for joining us for the second in our virtual trade fair series for the fall of 2015 on women-owned small businesses within the FedCetera network. So on the line with us today, we have not only Ed Delisle, who is with Cohen, Seglias and Partners, a national law firm with practice areas in government contracting. We also have some clients, including Judy LaSpada, who is the owner-operator of Virtuoso Sourcing Group, Kinda Baker, who is the owner-operator of National Recovery Solutions, and Maria Dewberry, who is the owner-operator of DMD Financial Services. So, Ed, without further ado, what I'd like to do is turn things over to you, and you could just let me know, do you want to take control of the PowerPoint portion of this, or would you like to prompt us to advance the slides?
Yeah, it would be a little bit easier if I did it, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Let me do that.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. All right, Ed, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, Nick, thank you very much. Leah, thank you very much. Let me start by very quickly introducing myself. My name is Ed Delisle. I am a partner at Cohen, Seglias, Palace, Green, Hall & Furman. I'm based here in Philadelphia. I also spend quite a bit of time in Washington, D.C. We just opened up our office there in July, primarily based upon the work that we're performing through our government contracting practice, which I am the co-chair of here at the firm. I spend an inordinate amount of time counseling clients that operate in the federal small business world, 8A companies, hub zone companies, women-owned small businesses. I've done an awful lot of work with service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. And the reason that I spend an inordinate amount of time counseling clients that fall into those categories is because the regulations constantly change. People constantly have questions about how to do things properly, and very often I'm counseling clients who have done things improperly, and they've called me because either a protest has been lodged against them and they need assistance in defending against the protest, or worse. So with that in mind, Nick has asked that I speak today about the small business program, and let me open up by talking about very briefly something that happened in 2013, which will sort of set the stage for some of the things that we're going to talk about. And just so everyone's aware, I'm probably going to speak for about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll have questions. Nick may end up asking some of those questions, but if anyone else has any that they'd like to ask me directly, that's completely fine. So in 2013, an audit report was issued by the NASA Office of Inspector General, and as part of that audit report, NASA took a look at a number of companies that had self-certified themselves as women-owned small businesses. And what they found was, out of the businesses that they audited, reviewed, that had held themselves out as WOSBs, 35% of those companies should not have self-certified as they did for one reason or another, and we can talk about what some of those reasons are very briefly. But 35% of the companies should not have self-certified as WOSBs, and that group of companies had been awarded contracts valued at $75 million, and that $75 million in procurements was spread out over 54 different contracts. Okay, various different organizations, government organizations were involved, and the NASA OIG concluded as follows. We believe that the level of false self-certification in our own business is troubling and may exist government-wide. That was back in 2013. And I can tell you from personal experience, both working with businesses operating either as women-owned small businesses or in that world, as well as other businesses that are operating in the various different categories that exist within the federal government. You have certification issues, false certification issues that are rampant. They're rampant. So what we're going to talk about today generally is what it takes to be a WOSB and operate appropriately within the context of the federal government. Advances here. Okay. Nick, how am I advancing the slides?
You may be able to just click your mouse or roll a mouse button or use the arrow keys, and if not, I'll take over.
Yeah. For some reason, it's not advancing. Why don't you go ahead and advance for me then?
Okay.
Okay. The requirements, generally speaking, we're not going to talk about EDWOSBs today. What I did was I speak about these issues frequently, and I pulled some slides that I had used just recently for a webinar elsewhere, and so I left that information in there. But Nick has informed me that that's not something that we're concerned with here, which is fine. But as far as WOSBs are concerned, the requirements seem quite simple. You have to be small under the standards identified by the SBA, and you have to be 51% unconditionally owned and unconditionally controlled by one or more women. Sounds so simple. And in reality, it sort of is. Okay, the problem that I see all the time is you have individuals who are determined to press the envelope in terms of what unconditional ownership and what unconditional control happens to be. And we're going to talk about some of those things in a moment. You go ahead and advance, Nick. Okay, so go ahead, Nick. You got one more. Okay, let's talk about unconditional ownership, because unconditional ownership is not typically the area where I see most of the problems, but I do see them. I mean, how difficult is it really for a woman or a group of women to own 51% of a company? Doesn't sound very difficult. Where you run into problems from an ownership standpoint very often is in an area what I call indirect ownership. Okay, indirect ownership means that, okay, a women-owned company, a company where in fact you have 51% that is owned by one or more women, is actually owned itself by another company, right? Maybe it's a subsidiary. Maybe there is a holding company that owns that has ownership interest of some kind, or maybe you have ownership held as what we call an ESOP, an employee stock ownership plan. Okay, under the federal scheme, the way that it's set up, that can become a problem. ESOPs, generally speaking, have a difficult time holding themselves out as WOSBs. Another area where ownership can become an issue, and this is an area where I have been involved in some litigation, is restrictions on ownership. So in other words, if you're a 51% owner of your company and you are a woman, are there restrictions on your ability to own that company? For example, are there rights of first refusal attached to your ownership interest? That's a very popular one. A right of first refusal may mean, okay, well, look, I'm a minority owner. I own 49% of your company, but you, even though you're the woman owner, are unable to sell your 51% of the company to someone else unless me, the minority owner, unless you give me the right of refusal before you sell. So I have a right to buy it first. Okay, that's a restriction on ownership, and it's actually a good example of a restriction on ownership that can become problematic. You have to be very careful when it comes to those types of restrictions in terms of being able to hold yourself out as unconditionally owning your company if you want to qualify under the WOSB program, at least in the federal context. There are other small business types, SDVOSB being one of them, where this had historically also been an issue. Just within the last several months, the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business Program, at least through the VA, is beginning to change that. Whether or not that trend carries over into the areas of women-owned small businesses, we'll have to see. Women-owned small businesses are in a somewhat of a transition as compared to some of the other small business programs, in that it's only been the last several years where you've had things such as set-aside contracts, where you've had things such as direct contracts being let from a government agency to a women-owned small business directly without there being competition of any kind. These are new things for women-owned small businesses, and they've existed elsewhere in other contexts for some time. I don't think you're going to see that carry over on restrictions of ownership that we're seeing on the veteran side carry over into the SBA programs anytime soon. So for the time being, and based on the rules the way that they are, any restriction on ownership you have to take into consideration if you want to qualify under the SBA's WOSB program. Okay. Nick, why don't you go ahead and advance? Okay. All right, let's talk a little bit about control. Okay. Control has to be unconditional, and generally speaking, there are two components to control under the WOSB program. You have to have control as the woman owner of all long-term decision-making for the company, and you also have to have control of the day-to-day management and administration of that business. As far as day-to-day operations are concerned, in order to be able to run a company on a day-to-day basis, you have to have an understanding, knowledge about the area of business that you're in. So when it comes to areas where control is challenged, that's one area in particular. Are you able to actually control your business? So that's certainly a very important aspect of whether you do or do not control, or whether you can or cannot control. There are also issues which we refer to as negative control, okay, that can become an issue from time to time. When it comes to issues of negative control, I can give you an example in the context of construction. Okay, I represent a lot of construction contractors, many of whom are women-owned businesses, and if you obtain bonding or bonding assistance from another company, that would be considered negative control, or at least it could, because the withholding of that bonding, if it's necessary to obtain a federal contract, would mean that this third party would control your ability to go after that procurement. Okay, so that could be, depending upon the circumstances, a problem in terms of negative control. If we'll use the same example, we'll use a construction context. If you need to rely upon the estimating services, for example, of another company for purposes of of obtaining a particular contract because you don't have the ability at that point in time to estimate a project on your own for purposes of submitting a bid, okay, then the withholding of that estimating service could be seen as negative, an aspect of negative control. All right, so that's another area where you could run into an issue. As far as control, as you'll see here, position, title, and experience, in fact, do matter, and we did talk about experience a little bit. The woman owner should be the highest, should hold the highest office in a particular company. They should have the highest title. It doesn't always have to be the case, as long as the owner, the 51% woman owner, still can exhibit control over the company. But generally speaking, the way when I counsel my clients, I tell them that they should be hold the highest position in any given company, because certainly that shows the level of control necessary to oversee and run a company. It's not absolutely required, which is what's stated here, but it's something that I like my clients to have with respect to their companies. Are there licenses involved in what you do absolutely necessary to control what happens with respect to your company? If another owner of the company or another employee of your company has a necessary license that you need as the woman owner to operate and run your company, that can be a problem in terms of control. What would happen if that person left? I see that issue come up from time to time. So when it comes to issues of control, do you in fact have the ability to operate your company day to day? Do you in fact control the administration of your company on a day-to-day basis? Do you have the knowledge and the experience to operate your business day to day? Do you have the ability to run and operate your business on a long-term basis, given your level of experience and your history in performing in whatever industry that you're in? All of these things become important with respect to your ability to control what happens with your company. Do you maintain full-time employment with your company? That's another issue that comes up in the context of control. I had a situation not too long ago where the woman owner of a company that hired me worked on a full-time basis in another capacity and at another company. She claimed that she was able to operate and control the company that she worked for that hired me also, but that became an issue. She had full-time employment elsewhere, and the question became, well, geez, how can you control this other company when you're working full-time elsewhere? Okay, difficult to do. You're supposed to be devoted to the WOSB that you're maintaining for purposes of going after these federal procurements. It does happen from time to time, and I've successfully defended matters where women owners have had other employment, but they have to prove then that they still control the business that is the subject of the procurement that is a part of the litigation, whatever that litigation may be. So all of these things become important in terms of qualifying for the WOSB program through the SBA. What can happen if you hold yourself out as a 51% owner of a WOSB and claim that you control that business, and it's not true? Suspension, debarment, and it could get even worse than that if the misstatements that are made in terms of the ownership and control are such that the authorities believe that you are purposely misleading. Okay, it's one thing to not quite understand the rules or for there to be a close call of some kind, but if someone makes a determination that you, as you holding yourself out as a WOSB, that you have done so knowing full well that you were not, well, it can get much worse than that. Certainly suspension and debarment is one thing, but we've had clients run into problems worse than that. Now, in the WOSB program, you're not, because some of the issues that we're talking about, the procurements that are now coming out are newer, set-aside contracts in particular, right? Direct contracts to WOSBs in situations where it's permitted under federal law. These are relatively new concepts for the WOSB program, and the program is going through some transition. So you're not seeing as many problems in terms of anything beyond suspension and debarment as compared to other of the small business programs, but all the same penalties that apply to the service disabled program, that apply to the 8A program, that apply to the Hub Zone program, also apply to the WOSB program. So you can certainly run into the same very serious problems that many owners have run into that fall into these other categories, where they have purposely and knowingly sought out and obtained procurements while also knowing that they did not qualify as owners of businesses that fall into these various other categories. So the penalties can be quite severe. So I've sort of talked for a while now. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Ed, and thank you for that content and that overview. We get so many questions around the WOSB status from the subcontractors, from prime contractors, from people who would like to do subcontracting, who think all they have to do is get their wife involved in the business. I guess what I'm wondering is, do any of the rules change whether you're talking about a prime award of a contract versus a subcontract on a federal task order?
No,
is it easier to be a WOSB?
Yeah, no, the rules are the rules, and they do not change depending on which tier of contracting you're talking about. It's still the same requirements whether you're a prime contractor or you are a subcontractor to a prime on a federal job. You still have to fulfill the same requirements in order to be considered a WOSB.
And as far as the awareness around what the rules are, why do you think people are not as aware of some of the rules as they could be?
Well, I don't know if it's an issue of not wanting to know. I've run into many, and you actually alluded to it just a few minutes ago. I've run into many situations where you have, I'll have a husband and a wife come in to visit me, and they'll want to set up a women-owned small business. The problem is that the husband has the experience, the knowledge, sometimes necessary licenses, and will continue to be involved in the business in some capacity. Many times what will happen when I have a couple approach me like that, well, me, the wife, I'm going to be 100% owner, well, he doesn't have any ownership interest at all. Yeah, but, okay, he's still going to be an employee of the company. The company, maybe he's a project manager of some kind. Maybe he holds some higher position with the company. The problem is that he's going to be involved and has to be involved, and you have to be very, very careful in a situation like that, because if there is an investigation of some kind, it's very likely that someone's going to conclude that the business cannot operate without him, and that you've created this front situation. So, I've had to counsel many clients against getting into a situation like that, or being extremely careful in terms of how you're going to put something like that together. Most of the time, it's very, very difficult to do that and to do it correctly.
It's really interesting stuff, and boy, you really covered the topic in a comprehensive way. I have all of the other attendees on mute. I'm just going to take everyone off mute for a moment because I'm not sure if anyone saw my chat encouraging questions. But if you have questions, now would be a good time.
This is Judy Lespeda. I have a question. Am I getting some?
Yes, Judy. I just put the other attendees on mute. So what we're going to do, folks, is just really ask you to raise your hand using the interface if you have a question. But Judy, now you're the only one who is off mute.
Okay. My question is, are there any legal risks to sort of misrepresenting yourself as a status that you might not be?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, what can happen is, and I made reference to it. Typically, the two primary or the two biggest concerns from a legal standpoint that you can run into, well, there are really three. The first one, if you hold yourself out as a WOSB, and let's assume that you are interested in being a prime contractor on a particular contract. Well, let's say that you are in line for an award. All right, great, I'm in line for an award. Well, you could get protested, and sometimes these protests, they wind and they turn. You can have your status protested, and the SBA will perform an investigation, and that investigation goes where it goes. You could be found to not be a WOSB just for that particular procurement. That's possible for one reason or another. And they may say, well, you know, you're not qualified. You may be a WOSB, but you don't qualify on this particular contract for one reason or another. Or they could say, whoa, you shouldn't be a WOSB at all. If that happens, you'll get, you'll be told, okay, you have to exit the program, and that could then lead potentially to what we call suspension and debarment. When you get to the point where you have a suspension or a debarment, what will happen very often is it's the company that's affected and the people. Okay, so then you, the person, would then not be able to associate yourself with another company or start another company if that's what you decide to do, because your presence as being on the suspended debarred list would infect whatever company you might go to. So, because it affects you personally. So yes, there are legal ramifications that can harm both you personally and the company that you're running if you misrepresent.
What about maybe civil claims? An example is this: I'm an unrestricted contractor, and you've come to me and represented yourself as a small woman-owned business, and 6 months down the road, I'm penalized by the Department of Education for qualifying you as my subcontractor. Does a subcontractor have any civil claim exposure for that?
I think if I've ever dealt with something of that nature. I mean, I guess theoretically it's possible. I can tell you in real life, it very rarely happens, and I'll tell you exactly why. It rarely happens because typically there'll be the prime contractor will be told, okay, well, hey, look, that's not really, I assume what you're talking about is someone that you've included as a WOSB as part of a subcontracting plan of some kind?
Right, and they've represented themselves as a WOSB, and now down the road it turns out that perhaps they don't technically qualify, and
right.
And, is there any recourse that I have for that?
Yeah, I mean, technically it's possible. If you suffer any harm, like for example, if you have to replace that WOSB with another one, you probably will not get defaulted by the Department of Education. Probably not. I mean, I suppose that if you've done something that they deem to be purposeful in some way, it might be different, but I doubt it. But if you've been harmed in some way by needing to replace that WOSB with another, well, sure. I mean, theoretically, if you suffered harm, there could be some recourse there. I haven't personally been involved in a situation where we've represented the prime and gone after a small business in that way, but I suppose it's theoretically possible.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Ed, this is Leah. I have a question.
Sure.
If a business is 51% owned by a woman, yet maybe she doesn't operate it, but hires another woman to run it and hold the highest title, does that still qualify?
Yeah, that's okay. As long as you have a 51% ownership interest, if you have another woman that's assisting and running it, it's not as if, and I counsel people on this a lot too, you can certainly delegate authority. I mean, look, if you own the company and you have control over your company, you also have the ability to delegate. I mean, I delegate work to people all the time. You're not expected to do everything. But what is expected of you, if you're going to delegate authority to somebody else, you still have to qualify under all the other areas that we talked about. You still have to have the ability to run it. You still have to have the ability to control day-to-day operations, the background to understand the business that you're in. Those sorts of things still need to be there. But yes, you can certainly delegate authority to someone to run it, and if it's a woman, that's absolutely fine.
And Judy, this is Nick. I still have you off mute if you had other questions.
No, I think that was the extent of my questions.
Okay, I'm going to put you back on. Go ahead, Leah.
I have one that kind of piggybacks on Judy's, and you might have kind of answered it, but you mentioned that penalties could be quite severe. What would be the penalties other than a status protest with the SBA? Would there actually be monetary penalties?
Oh, there can be. If you follow all the various small business programs, the Women-Owned Small Business Program is no different than any of the others. The only difference really with the WOSB program is that the SBA is really expanding on opportunities for WOSBs. Set-aside contracts, direct contracts under the right circumstances. The cap on dollar value was lifted, I guess it was 2 years ago now, and so it's opened up a whole new realm of possibilities for WOSBs, much in the same way that for all these other companies. So so all of the penalties associated with the expansion of the WOSB program that exists in all these other programs, it all comes into play. So suspension and debarment, which I mentioned earlier, is a very real possibility for someone who misrepresents. And for you asked about monetary penalties. Well, there's a possibility if it was bad enough. So say, for example, you misrepresented and over the course of time obtained $50 million worth of contracts that you should not have received. Okay, that could be deemed what the federal government calls a presumed loss of $50 million, right? So even though, and there's a split in the circuits across the country in terms of whether or not that should or shouldn't apply, but what that means is, okay, well, if I received $50 million worth of contracts as a WOSB and I should not have received those contracts, well, I owe the government $50 million back. I mean, it can get ridiculously expensive. Yeah, ridiculously expensive. It can get very bad. It can get criminal. I mean, there are people that have gone to jail for misrepresenting their status, and effectively, how the federal government looks at it is stealing contracts. Okay, that's how they look at it when it's bad enough. Does that happen often? To be honest, I don't know if it happens often. It happens often enough. Not necessarily in the WOSB program because of how new some of this stuff is to WOSBs. Oh, but it happens with 8A companies. It happens with service-disabled veteran-owned companies. In fact, I'd say the SDVOSB program is the one that has been affected the most as far as the severity of penalties is concerned. But the WOSB program can be hit by the same penalties as any of the other small business programs.
Thank you.
That's really helpful. And Judy, I just put you back on mute. I'm just going to go through the audience members one more time. And by the way, Kim Amaker with Southern Financial Services is with us now. So I'm just going to give Kinda the ability to see if she has any questions. So Kinda?
I'm all set. You pretty much answered everything. Thank you.
Okay. And now we'll see if Maria. Maria, are you with us? Okay. Maria, if you have any questions, if not, we'll just come back to you. And Kim, by the way, welcome. You are now off mute. Did you have any questions for Ed?
No, I didn't. I'm glad I got, somehow or another, I got the times wrong, and I'm glad that I got in on most of that, but no, I don't have any questions.
Okay, good enough, Kim. I'm just going to put you on mute again momentarily. So Ed, I think you've covered this topic as comprehensively as we could have asked today. If we have additional questions, I think we could send those to you via email. Leah, can you think of anything else?
I cannot, but by the way, Maria, since we cannot hear you, you could type any questions that you have in the chat box, just so you know. Just wanted to let her know that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
if anybody has any questions, I mean, look, I'm happy to answer, questions via email and that sort of thing. If they're just questions, it's not a big deal. I don't mind doing that. I'm happy to. So that's, and Nick, you can circulate my information if folks need it.
Absolutely, Ed, and we certainly appreciate your time, and we'll be in touch some point later this week.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks for joining, and if everyone could just hold the line, we'll move on to the next part of the call.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now what we'd like to do is transition and have a series of presentations from the folks who are on the line. And what I'm going to do, Judy, is give you the mic again, and you can prompt me through these slides, and it's all yours.
I think I have a little bit of a problem in that I can hear myself talking. So and I've got some feedback. Hang on, let me.
Judy, I just put you on mute. We are hearing a tremendous amount of feedback. I don't know if there's any way for you to, if you're on speaker, maybe come off speaker, or if you're using a computer microphone to dial back into the line, and we can with ourselves. So I'm going to take mute off and just tell me what you think.
I think that it's better now in terms of the feedback, but I can still hear myself talking. So if I sound like I'm not organized about what I'm saying, it's because I can hear myself about half a second after I say things. And it's kind of
I've been there. It can be annoying at times, but let's just see if we can bear with it. But by all means, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, thank you for the time, and thanks for taking a couple of minutes to let me go through our business and what we do. Virtuoso Sourcing Group is our company. I'm one of the founders and CEO. I own the majority of the business and operate it on a daily basis. We're a nationally licensed debt collection firm, and we maintain two focuses really. One is student loan and student receivables collections. We have campus-based clients and the subcontract with the Department of Education. Presently, the contract, again, restricted contractor we work for is Wyndham Professionals. We also have a part of our business that works for 12 utility companies, and we perform first and third party collections for those utility companies, and they range from the Ohio Valley to the Southwest. We're headquartered in Denver, Colorado, where we have a call center that is occupied by 47 agents, and we have a second site in Tempe, Arizona that we just opened in May. It has capacity for 90 agents, and we presently have 60 available seats there. I guess maybe go to the next slide. I don't know. Are there any contractors on the line, Nick?
I think you'll be the only one, Judy.
I mean, in terms of folks that are interested in looking for subcontractors?
They will get a copy of the recording.
Okay. You know, this first slide just kind of talks about experience, and we know what the unrestricted go through in order to obtain a contract. We've had in our career we've had 2 contracts. This is the second business we've had that's had a contract. The first company that our group worked with, we had a contract with Progressive Financial for 5 years from 2000 to 2005. And this company we formed in 2010, and in 2011 we were successful and lucky to win an award with Wyndham Professionals, and we've worked with them consistently since then. We've learned a lot, you know, about what the unrestricted contractors go through to win the contract, maintain the contract, compete for volumes. And we know that as a subcontractor, you know, we've got to be more than just a pretty face that puts, you know, a few CS points on the board because of our status. We really know that we need to contribute, and we need to keep up in terms of our ability to cure accounts and contribute to rehabilitations. And our company does that. And we think that when an unrestricted contractor that goes to all the work and trouble and expense of having to win a contract should be able to pick a subcontractor who's going to bring more value than just through their status, but by actually contributing financially and competitively to the success of the unrestricted contractor. And that's what we do. You can go to the next one if you'd like. So, you know, what makes our company unique, I think, is our team. Anyone who is on our Christmas card circulation knows that every year we have a team Christmas card that we circulate, and on this slide is this year's card that you'll be receiving, Nick and Leah. You know, it started off when we began the company as something we wanted to do to disseminate our brand and for people to get to know us, and it's really kind of become a team-building activity for us. Now every year we like to get dressed up, and we have a professional photographer come and take our picture and put makeup on the men, which is always fun, and then we all go to lunch and have a nice day. The reason that's important is our team is what makes us different. Our team's been together for, some of us almost 20 years, most of us at least 10 years. Our team is a tenured team. We all know each other. We work really well together. We know each other's families. You know, the babies that we all saw being born are now going to college. It's a really tight group, and in a small company that makes a difference in how well you perform in terms of competitively, financially, and just the way that we service our clients. Our team is extraordinary also in that it's a pretty highly educated group. Of the people you see in this picture, all but 2 people have earned undergraduate degrees, and 5 of the people in this picture have advanced degrees. And they bring all sorts of different types of education to our business, which, you know, I think helps us to keep contemporary with what it is we need to do and know and to enhance our ability to compete in today's environment. Our people are highly dedicated. I think I mentioned we all worked together in a business a few years ago, and we sold that business and we all went our separate ways. And when myself and Ryan, who's my business partner, he's the gentleman in the back on the left, he runs our Tempe site. When Ryan and I decided to form Virtuoso, we were just amazed and flattered that all these people we had worked with in the past came to us and wanted to come back and help us build another business. And then, you know, compliance. We're going to talk a lot about compliance in the next couple of slides. It's become a big deal in our industry, and for someone who's been in this business for 30 years, I think it's great. You know, I've seen the transition of the way it started when I was in college, when you know, compliance was something the companies rolled their eyes at, and now it's become something that's important. And it's transformed the perception of our business. I think it's contributed to more companies and more types of organizations using businesses like ours because our credibility has been strengthened. And it keeps the folks out of our industry who you know, maybe aren't the most honest players. So we are, you know, completely behind all of the compliance changes that have taken place over the years, and in fact we are more than just behind it, we're ahead of it. How about the next slide? So 12 reasons we think that we should be your next subcontractor, and I'll go through them very quickly. The intangibles are our experience. We've had 2 subcontracts. We performed very well on both of them, and in fact, because Wyndham is one of the 5 companies that continues to receive new work, we continue to receive new work, and a lot has changed just since April when a lot of companies stopped receiving new work. The Department of Ed has shifted their focus even more intensely on compliance, and terms and conditions for rehabs have changed, and I think it gives us some competitive advantage to be a company that is still in the mix of what is happening on a day-to-day basis with Ed and the new work that's being delivered. In terms of performance, I would leave that question to Chuck Harper, who is our contract manager at Wyndham Professionals. He's told me more than once, anytime anyone wanted a reference, to go ahead and call him. He uses 3 companies for subcontracting, and we are by far ahead of the other 2 in terms of our ability to rehabilitate accounts and do it in a way without complaints and without any kind of being a high maintenance performer. In terms of knowledge, our group knows this, and I'm the CEO of the business and do a number of things every day, but I could get on the phone and explain to you how to rehabilitate an account. I understand what constitutes a setup, what types of information we need for a POI, how we get it. I understand how the payments work, what the grace periods are, how the RAL works, and what it takes to actually get an account approved for rehabilitation by the Department of Ed. Everyone in our company knows this, and it's something that is a moving target. It changes frequently. We meet about it every single Monday, and our folks are just exceptionally knowledgeable about the program and the various programs and how it all works. We'll talk about compliance a lot because I don't think we can talk about it enough. It is a deal breaker with this contract, and it's not something that we talk about daily. It's something we talk about hourly. We listen to calls all day long. We work with people all day long. Training is something that is happening constantly, and you just can't do enough of it. You can't. That's a ball you just can't take your eye off of any minute, any hour, any day. In terms of capacity, since we've built our new site, and this is probably more of a tangible than an intangible, probably in the wrong column, but we do have a lot of seats available at our site in Tempe, and Tempe was a location that we chose because there were so many Ed contractors in that area. Most of them are no longer receiving volumes, so when we run an ad for an agent, we receive a lot of responses from people who want to come and do this work. It's not difficult to staff there. And I guess that covers the next one, which is staffing. In terms of the tangibles, we are a woman-owned certified small business. We have a lot of bilingual staff, which is critically important. It's amazing to me how many folks go to college in America and English is not their primary language, but it is that way, and we need to have people on staff who can communicate with those folks. In terms of technology, we have on-staff people that work directly with our contractor to make sure that all of our interfaces are going. We don't wait for our vendors or programmers to get around to finding time to make this stuff work. We make it work ourselves, and we make it work quickly. We do have the 2 sites. We have an extraordinary management team, and if I didn't mention compliance, compliance is the most important factor that we focus on when it comes to this contract. Can we go to the next one? This basically sums it up for us. When we founded this business and we gave it this name, it had to do with something personal, for something a lot of us have something in common here, and that's our love for classical music. And so we sort of named our company because of something related to an involvement we had in the community in that. And then after we did that, we realized, what does this word really mean? I mean, these kids who are truly virtuosos in the classical music world, they're incredibly hardworking perfectionists, and they can't hit a sour note. And so after we named our businesses, we realized that we needed to set ourselves apart by living up to the definition of our name, which is a daily task that we focus on continually. I think it's really hard for me because I can hear myself talking, which is never fun. But I think that's pretty much it, unless anyone has questions.
Judy, I think that's a great overview of the company, and we surely do appreciate it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pass the mic over to the next person, and it will be Kim. And let me just give you that. And so, Kim, take it away.
Okay, well, that was quite an interesting and well put together presentation. So I don't know that I've got quite that much, quite that good a deal, but I'm going to start from the beginning, and I think that that I think I've got everything to offer with a small woman-owned business that any larger company would have. I started this out in almost 20 years ago with one person. That person is still with me, along with about 7 of the very beginning people. I'm located in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I've got approximately 28 people. We do have one site. We've been very, very successful over the 18 to 20 years that we've been in business. I've got a lot of clients, different kind of clients. I do medical, real estate, utilities, pretty much anything that needs to be collected. I'm able to do it. It's been quite a challenge, and I feel like that with starting with one person where I am now, I have been very successful in really being able to obtain a subcontract with education department. I mean, that would be the biggest challenge I ever had, and I would be so excited about it because I am in South Mississippi. I am in a smaller state, a small town, but the people I've got here, the attention that we focus on towards, compliance, training, everything I do. I look sometimes and I think, I'm a small business. I'm doing everything that these big businesses are doing. And yes, I am on a smaller scale. So, we've got one of the best, I feel like, systems. We're on Hubs, which Columbian Business, Ultimate Business Solutions. I probably do just about everything that the other agencies do, and I just need the opportunity to show them what I can do, and I believe that my record would speak for itself. I would have great references, and I believe I've got everything that I need. I am woman-owned for sure. I know I came into the conversation a little later. Men can't do what we can do now. Women got it made here. So, it's been that way since day one. So it's been tough. It was not easy starting out, and there have been a lot of changes. But we have been able to overcome obstacles and roll with changes, and I feel like we're on the right track, and I have everything in place, and I really feel like I could do whatever I needed to make this successful for everybody involved. And I guess that's about it.
And that's a great overview, Kim, and we're going to be asking you some questions momentarily once we get through the other presenters here. So sure. I'm just going to pass it over, and we need to see if we can get Maria's audio working. So Maria, are you with us? Okay. Maria appears to be on the line. Problems with audio. So what we're going to do, Maria, is if you can hear us, send me a private chat if you feel like you figure it out, and we'll just come back to you. So instead, we'll talk to the Bakers, Kinda and Kevin, and Kinda, take it away.
How you doing? My name's Kinda Baker. I'm the CEO of National Recovery Solutions. As you know, my husband Kevin and I, we founded the company in 2006, and a while back we transitioned our company to a woman-owned small business. This was a seamless transition for me, as I've been the operations director of the company for the last 9 years. We are a current subcontractor for the U.S. Department of Education, and over the last 9 years we've grown our company to about 40 plus employees. In addition to being a woman-owned small business, we've worked with major banks, credit unions, municipalities, and other large industry clients. And I am proud to be able to say that most of our staff that's with us has been here for an average of 5 years, with many others here for at least 7 to 8 years. We are members of the ACA, the DBA, a registered woman-owned small business on SAM.gov, and we did recently complete our DBA certification and our SOC 2 Type 2 certified. In addition to all that, we are nationally licensed, insured, and bonded, and we've been able to maintain the A+ rating on the Better Business Bureau. We are a woman-owned small business with current experience on the U.S. Department of Education. With our experience and management team, we would make an outstanding partner to any PCA that is awarded of the contract. Most of our employees are averaging a higher number of rehab sets than any other agencies currently. with all the changes. And our commitment to compliance and data security has been demonstrated by our SOC 2 certification, along with the A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and our vast list of references. Lastly, our company is proud. We do a charitable donation every year. We host an annual event called the NRS Charity Classic, in which we've raised an upward of about $60,000 now for Make-A-Wish, a local charity called Mikey's Way, and many other charities. We feel that we're blessed, and so in many ways, and we really enjoy giving back to the community. Excuse me, the community. We are proud of the company that we've built and would make an outstanding partner to any other company. I wanted to thank you for allowing us the time to be able to speak today, and it's a great opportunity to be able to talk about our company that we've worked so hard in building, and thank you for your time.
That's welcome, Kinda. Thank you so much for that as well. So what we'll do is we'll give Maria a chance. I think the audio may be working. Maria, how's the audio? Can you give it a try? Perhaps not. Maria, we see you raising your hand. So what we'll do is we're going to be talking for a little while longer just about some industry topics. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is go back to the original invitation and just try to find the dial-in number. Maybe dial in from a different phone or cancel the connection and come back in, and we can come back to you a little bit later. So, folks, we really appreciate everyone joining this afternoon, and we know that there are 4 very well-established businesses on the line who have been in business for a long time, and each of these businesses has a different story to tell. So, Judy, what was it like starting your agency? Maybe not even Virtuoso, maybe go back to the very beginning, or maybe tell both stories. And hold on, Judy. Let me give you the audio. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. With the first one, I'm not sure we really knew what we were doing. We had an opportunity to jump in, and it was all trial and error, and we started that business.
Judy, we're just going to ask you to speak up a little bit.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. So we started it in '97 and grew to about 400 employees until we sold it in '04. And, giving it a second time, now that I look back, I think we were very, very lucky, and I think the times then were very different also. It was a lot easier then. When we started Virtuoso in 2010, a lot had changed. It was, also right around the time when the economy had struggles. And certainly regulation, the intensity of regulators that really stepped up, and the way that relationships with clients had changed. So I think it was a lot harder the second time. We learned a lot from our first experience. Starting Virtuoso had, I think, a lot more barriers, or higher barriers to entry than we experienced when we started the first business. It's been a lot more work. It's also been fun, and we just completed our 5th year, completed our 6th year, and I can't say enough that we've got that critical mass in terms of our numbers of clients and diversification of services that we feel like we'll be successful going forward. But I would say the second time in this particular climate, for a number of reasons, was a lot more difficult than the first time.
Judy, that's helpful, and I'm just going to mention that your presentation was much more clear than that, so if you can even move closer to the phone as we get further into this, that would help. And so, Kinda and Kevin, maybe just a little bit on why you started your agency and when you did.
Well, we started back in 2006, and primarily the reason why we started it was because we were doing something very similar in the education sector at another company, and felt that with our strengths and expertise that we were able to do it on our own and probably even better. What was the other part of the question? I'm sorry, you wanted the phone.
What was the driver of why you started the business?
Nick, do you mind if I chime in for a second?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, no, just, you know, we both got our start in the collections industry at NCO Group, and, you know, ultimately both were working in education. And I just think, you know, with going to college, you know, working in a bigger environment, you know, we both just kind of had the mindset of kind of wanting to be our own boss, kind of create our own avenue. And so, you know, I think it was just it was kind of a natural progression, you know, for us to form the company. And you know, we knew that if we worked hard and built a great reputation, did it compliantly, you know, networked ourselves, you know, we knew our list of references and client partners would grow. And, you know, 9 years to grow from, you know, a couple of us starting to 40 plus employees, being a very successful current subcontractor on the Department of Ed, you know, doing charitable work, having, you know, plenty of references across the board in many different sectors. I think it's a real, you know, testament to our hard work, our compliance, our dedication, our integrity, and, you know, as Judy was mentioning with her company, our staff is huge for us too, and so it's been pretty rewarding to be able to have, you know, some people that have worked for us for 5, 6, 7 years, you know, in a company that's been around for 9. And I think it's just a lot of hard work and dedication, and you know, we're excited as to where we're going to go from here with the woman-owned opportunity and our current successful endeavor that we're undergoing now. You know, we obviously have a lot of experience on the contract, both in compliance and basically the process from start to finish. So, you know, we're looking forward to meeting some new partners, and I really believe that we would excel with an additional partnership currently like the one we have.
Well, thank you, Kim and Kevin, for that. And Kim, I'm just curious if you could tell us a little bit more about what it was like starting your company, and what were some of the challenges that you might have faced starting the business, or maybe challenges that might have been specific to the fact that you started a woman-owned business.
Well, basically the first question, what was it like? It was tough. I had been a paralegal for a hospital. I was born and raised right here in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and I had been a paralegal. Prior to that, I had worked in the court system. And, you know, I'm sure everybody here knows the hospitals sell constantly, and when my job after 12 years was no longer part of the new hospital that bought out the one I was with, I said, you know, I've got a lot of experience, and I really feel like at this point I need to be doing this for myself where the sky's the limit, because I was limited, as anyone is that's not doesn't own their own business. I would have ideas that I thought were great, and, you know, it would be like, well, yeah, that's good, you know, so, but we're going to do what we want to do. So I said, I'm going to do it on my own. Well, I started out myself and my friend, who she is still with me, and we are friends after 18 years. You know, I heard someone else say we know each other's family. I would work in the day, and she would work at night. It started out very small. Again, I'm in Mississippi, so, you know, they're not a lot of huge places around here. But and then I know some of y'all may not even realize this, or may, you know, we get a lot of publicity from being down here in the South that may not always be real good. In the beginning, when I would go around to clients, a lot of times I ran into boards of supervisors or trustee boards, or just whoever the powers that be that were older men. And I would go and I would take, at the time I had a man that, you know, I added people on as we went. And the guys would want to talk with him about the business. You know, these are potential clients. And they would always want to talk to him. And, you know, it was like, all right, little lady, will you just come visit any time? And I'm thinking, you know, this is my business. I'm bringing him with me. So even though that's probably not something that big cities run into as much, it was tough. Now, I mean, it's just, I have so much more respect, and I've come so far with that, you know, that's not even a concern anymore. But, you know, in the beginning, 18 years ago, I did run into that a lot. There are not a whole lot of women-owned businesses down here. But it's, you know, I mean, it's been a lot of work, but it's been worth it. And I feel like, you know, I have a lot of respect from the outside. I have lots of respect from the inside. I mean, I've got my guys, I mean, I saw on Facebook one day, not long ago, one of them said, I work for the greatest boss ever. You know, that in itself is an accomplishment for me, because if you've got a team that works with you, backs you up, is there for you, and you're respected on the outside because of your record, I think that, you know, speaks for itself in so many ways. I mean, talk's cheap, but I mean, this can all be verified. So it was tough, but I'm going right along, doing great. And by the way, thank y'all also. I didn't say it a while ago. I don't like doing interviews real well, but I really do appreciate the opportunity. I know we all do.
You couldn't have this business, Kim, without, you know, the companies that we work with, including the women-owned businesses that we work with, so we appreciate that. And what we're going to do is we're going to try Maria's audio once again. Maria, are you with us? And no go on that audio. So Judy, let me ask you this question. What has changed the most in the industry since you even started Virtuoso?
I think that's an easy answer. The way that client relationships are established. When I started in the industry, it was a matter of taking someone to lunch and convincing them to just give you a pile of accounts that you'd walk away with that day. Then, you know, it became considerably more sophisticated, but it was still very relationship-based in terms of how we would win new clients. And it's evolved past that now to, you know, what is probably better, and that is, you know, a more selective process, more RFPs, more procurement people involved, not so much, you know, the type of business relationships that we used to do in the previous decades. I think that's the biggest change. The second biggest change is probably the intensity of the regulatory climate.
Well, certainly that's something everyone continues to talk about. And Kinda, what are you guys seeing along the compliance front? I mean, what are some of the biggest challenges or headlines that you have thought have been interesting over the last 3 to 6 months?
I mean, the obvious change is the level of compliance and the data security. I feel, you know, we are greatly positioned with everything we've done, you know, along with, you know, having our SOC 2 done, being SOC 2 certified. And we've now, you know, most of our training that we're conducting is based on the ACA level of training. I don't know, Kevin, if you wanted to mention anything.
Well, I just think compliance is, you know, as Judy had mentioned earlier in the call, is everything now. And, you know, the industry's obviously gone through a huge overhaul, and, you know, understanding what it takes, you know, as a current subcontractor in regards to specifically relating to ed, you know, there's obviously a whole lot that goes into it. So, you know, whether it's that aspect of our business or really any of the other segments of our business, I mean, compliance is absolutely king now. Results are almost secondary. And I think the good thing about us is we have all the compliance, we have the data security with our SOC 2 audit, but our results are still superior. So that's, you know, I think, you know, getting the compliance standards to a very high level have weeded out a lot of, you know, some of the companies that have caused problems for the rest of the good ones here, and you know, I'm glad as well that that's the case.
Well, thanks for that, Ken and Kevin. And Kim, as far as your business and what it's like to operate in your part of the South, I mean, I don't know that there are that many collection agencies in that part of the South. What's it like for you recruiting people in general, and what do you think it would be like if you tried to recruit people for a federal subcontract?
Well, I mean, as far as down here in the South, you know, having, like you said, they're not a lot, you know, but the good thing about what I have going here, and we have a lot of single moms in this area. You know, so much is talked about, and yes, of course, you know, you live in a big city, and, you know, you've got to have that piece of paper, you've got to have a degree, or, you know, it doesn't necessarily say you really know everything about what you have the degree on, no, but you need that piece of paper to get a job. Down here, single moms or dads may not be able to afford school at the time, and, you know, they don't really, I mean, it's kind of like this is something that they can do, work their way up in. They can learn this through our own, we provide training. We provide, every week we have a meeting, anything that's changed. And I mean, they're taught a skill that a piece of paper with a degree cannot teach you all the time, to be a collector, to work with people, to all the things that it takes for a collection agency to be successful. And again, I do feel like I'm kind of in a different world, you might, in one way, not in the sense of I have to be just as compliant and do everything right just like everybody else does. But I feel like we provide opportunities here through this agency that, if I was able to subcontract with a big agency, would provide more jobs for more people down here that, may not be able to walk in somewhere with a degree. So with me, I mean, I feel like that market attracts people. I feel like these people, they're so appreciative of these jobs because, again, they don't have a degree, but, we try to, work with bonuses and anything I can and provide insurance, provide the things that a bigger company does. And they're very dedicated and loyal. They want to learn. They want to be a part of something that's growing. And, that's what I feel like.
And that's very helpful as well, Kim. And what we're going to do is we're going to try Maria one more time. Maria, can you hear us? Okay. So I guess we're getting close to the end of the call, and I'm just going to ask a few more questions, and we'll go back to you, Judy, and I'll give you this question. So, what do you think in terms of the challenges associated with operating multiple subcontracts, which would be what would happen in your case, and what do you think, are the issues that the subcontractor has to be aware of so that they're able to manage both for the multiple clients?
Well, I think keeping them both happy, it would be a juggling act. We don't have multiple contracts, although we would like to. I think, earning the trust and making sure they have the assurances that their information, their best practices would be, kept confidential and not shared across with other contractors. I think, making sure that both contractors feel like they are the priority, just like what we do with any other client in our environment. I don't see a lot of challenges with it other than perhaps them being, and the reason I use this as an example is because what's been shared with me by our contractors, them wanting to make sure that the secret sauce or the things that we've learned from one contractor, we're not sharing with another contractor to improve their competitive advantage.
Well, and I think that pretty much says it all, and I think those sentiments echo what we're hearing from the PCAs when they're even considering someone who already has a subcontract. So that sort of summarizes it in a very clean and clear way. So Kenda and Kevin, I'm just going to sort of wrap things up with this question. What do you think makes or breaks the implementation of a subcontract? If you had to boil it down to a few things, things that maybe determine the long-term success of it, what are those things?
Well, I think it's it's several things. First of all, it's being organized. I mean, you need to be very organized. You have to have people in place that are able to learn the process or know the process. I think that's critical because there are so many things that go into being successful. The compliance, is very overwhelming if you have no idea, what is happening. The system, it can be challenging until you get it down. There's just a lot of moving parts, and I think, you have to be organized. You have to segment the order of operations that you're doing for your prime into different groups. And we've had a lot of success, doing this. I think, having a great partner on the top end is huge, and our prime is is amazing. The support that they gave us initially when we got going made it truly a great experience for us. And every question that we had, and we couldn't be more thankful to work